Tudo bom, galera? How's it going, peoples? As I cross the street here in the city center of Lisbon. Out here is a special place in an area called São Paulo. And why this is a special place, that is, for me, it's because it's a place of my youth. And my grandma used to live in this building, I think, which is now broken windows. The top is all bricked up. But here there's a big chunk of my history before I went to the Netherlands. I ended up here because I got a special little ride again for a little bit of a Lisbon introduction. And its seat is stuck with a bolt, and that bolt broke. And why I'm lingering here in the road, you're going to see, because I want to see the tram. You got to see the tram. We'll be here in a second. But I snapped the bolt, and then I had to ride 6 kilometers standing up to get to a little shop for screws and bolts, which ended up being nearby. So here we are, because I was going to start beautiful Lisbon Bridge, but I figured why not start somewhere that's close to the heart. Look at the tram. This doesn't get any more Lisbon than that. But Lisbon has been evolving, just like, for example, Amsterdam has been over the years. All these capital cities, you know, these cosmopolitan places, and these kind of neighborhoods clean up. You know, you got the process of gentrification with its positives and negatives. But let me introduce you to my little ride here, my Lisbon ride. It's not an Oma fiets like when we got to the Netherlands, but it's a nice, very light mountain bike. So light that this bolt here snapped off because of my Rona thickness. Of course, that's the only explanation. So let me take you for a little ride through all of this. I'm gonna ride down the coast, well, the riverside, as good as possible, and show you around a little bit. So I hope you're keen for that. So what I always loved about this area here is that this is so typical Lisbon center, with the houses, the colorful houses on the side, these older houses, monumental houses, little big churches or almost cathedrals, and all these roads that all of a sudden go up like this, and all of a sudden you're struggling. That's why I want to do a motorcycle tour through the city sometime, especially if when you go to Alfama, then you go up the hills and whatnot, and it's absolutely beautiful. And go to the side, here we go. Whoa. You know, it is always a bit strange, more than a bit strange, to go back to Portugal. And it's been 10 years, at least I reckon, since the last time that I was here. And I remember last time, I don't know, I was 22, 3 years old. It felt a bit different already, you know? So I'd been so long in the Netherlands. I was going to uni in the Netherlands. And I guess these might be just immigrant things, you know. I'm a bicycle, right? Bicycles don't stop for red, right? Not in cities, right? Look at this. Whoa. It's a bicycle path. Yes, sir, it is. The Netherlands led the world forward and showed them how wonderful bicycle paths can be. But anyway, back then, I already struggled a bit with the language. I was going to uni back then, so you're reading a lot and your vocabulary expands and your thought processes change. And then you come here and you notice that you can't express yourself as well as in Dutch or English. So that can be frustrating. You know, I don't think strange feeling is the right thing, but it's different and I can't really explain it. It's now a combination of being gone for so long, being on a road for so long, and being back in a place that is so much part of your whoa, there goes the bolt. Oh, you hear that? That's the seat. Be back in a place, in a culture that's so much part of your identity, but you struggle still to express that identity. I think I've developed about 3 of them, you know. The Dutch identity, the English one, and I have the Portuguese one. Well, the Dutch I grew up with most of my life. The English one just grew and grew and grew more, and the Portuguese one, the language was always there, but the experience lacked. So I do reckon that your language, your heritage defines a lot of your identity. And so it takes time to pick that up. But this year, I really love it. Now we're going towards what I'll show you later, or in a sec, is the most beautiful bridge in the world. You can fight me over that. To be on the other side. You know, I'm only slightly familiar with the place nowadays, and so much has also changed over the years, obviously. Here we go. Gear shifting and GoProing at the same time. Any trains? Nope. Let's cross it. Too high for the rims, not my bike. And then you get to a spot like this. Come on. And this is, the bridge itself is where shortly the river Tagus is going to end up in the Atlantic Ocean. Just on this bridge, man, been over it so many times, and finally myself, like you saw when I entered Portugal. But I always this ride across the bridge and under it always spoke, you know, to my imagination. Was that a Dutch sentence I just said in English? There goes a train over the bridge. This was added later on. The sound that you hear is that grill, that iron steel grill, that makes the noise when the wheels go over it. I think you might have seen some of that in the video. There goes the train to the other side of the Rio Tejo. Let's go underneath it. Just have to go around the marina here. There's Tagus. Hear that sound? It's like a swarm. Scared me as a kid because of that. Pedro, what's the name of the bridge? Oh, I'm glad you asked. It's known here as Ponte 25 de Abril, the 25th of April bridge, and that is because that's what it was named after a revolution in 75. Portugal until the mid-70s used to have a dictatorship, and to celebrate they named the bridge that way. It was the day of the revolution, the new independence of Portugal. And why this always spoke to my imagination as a kid is because of the Portuguese history. And every time we went over that bridge, in my imagination I saw the ships that sailed from Portugal in the age of discoveries, you know, already in the 15th century. And I said in a previous video that there was a time when Portugal and Spain discovered the world and ruled the seas, and it all started out with ships from here sailing out to the Atlantic Ocean, trying to find a new route to India, sailing around South Africa, Cape of Good Hope, Vasco da Gama, Magalhães, who almost went around the world when he went around where I was in Argentina, where I was going, Tierra del Fuego. All these discoverers that departed for years and came back years later to tell tales of new worlds. And so this has always been a place of a great childhood imagination, and even years after I can get that feeling, that sentiment. because for the Portuguese in our culture, there is something about that history that's deeply ingrained into our souls. You could say that Portugal in the modern world, let's say the Renaissance world, was the first to lose an empire. And that feeling of having been great before, discovered the world, that became ingrained in the culture, and there's something of a longing for that time, for that age. Maybe that's a theme for some other time, what's called a saudade. Here, passing by the Jerónimos Monastery. I don't know if you can see anything. The GoPro is not very good at looking at things far away. But that's a big, beautiful monastery built, what is that? Probably again 16th century. It's really in that old school style of Portugal. And that's still some architecture from that time, English, that has been maintained, because in the 18th century, Portugal had a massive earthquake that destroyed the city center. Some massive cathedrals that had just been built were completely destroyed. So the city center lost a lot of its old style, and actually Portugal is one of the first to implement modern city planning with the long, straight roads, you know, with the squares. What do you call them? Blocks, like the North Americans know them. But yeah, that was like 1755, and there was a massive tsunami afterwards, and it was one of the deadliest earthquakes ever. Wasn't good for Portugal. But now here on the shore of the Tagus is something that I also always loved in my childhoods, and that's Pedro the Descobrimento. It's the Discovery Monument, and this monument here was built in honor of the age of discovery, and these massive human sculptures that sit on the ridge here, which the front represents what do you call that in English? The bow, the front end of a ship. My maritime vocabulary is lacking, forgive me folks. But all these people represent important figures of that age. With up front, Infante Enrique. He was an explorer, he was the son, he was the prince. And now I don't know anymore who everybody is, but Vasco da Gama and a few other explorers are on here too, and religious people and saints. And it's a shame that I can't get up close, because these statues are massive. And it reminds me a bit of some of the things I've seen in the ex-Soviet Union on my travels there, these massive monuments. So I would say this is a monumental monument in honor of Infante Don Enrique, and for the Portuguese who discovered the seafaring routes. Because that's what happened back then, man. Just these ships, not knowing anything, very little. Now, not that BS, like, we don't know if the world is round or not, you know, like in that movie they made of Columbus. That was BS. People knew the world was round back then. Luís Camões, who has the scroll written, and that's Portugal's biggest poet, biggest writer. He wrote like the Portuguese equivalent of the Iliad as Lusíadas, about that epic, grand age of discovery that defined the Portuguese spirit back then. I hope it comes through on the camera a bit, and then you'll understand that it's a beautiful place, full of history. Definitely all this riding around all these places I've been helped me to create a story of the world, a narrative of the world. And I already started out here as a kid. Gear up. Yep, that's the life I never really got to know out here. And to tie back into the early story I was saying about this being the place where I come from, well, it's one of those things. I reckon if there's more people, you know, who aren't in their country of origin anymore for a long time already, if they ever wondered what could have been, you know, a life there. But you know, the Portugal back then was also different. I guess life in the Netherlands is not too bad, but it's just one of those things, you know. I ended up living in the rural south of the Netherlands. But this here was the heart of Portugal. I say that, but now some people up north here in Portugal might be getting an angry itch. People from Porto. Because up north they say, nah, forget about Lisbon. Because Portugal started in the north. Until they started the Reconquista. And pushing out the Moors, the same thing the Spanish were doing back then. because the Moors for centuries had conquered and subjugated the Iberian Peninsula. So Portugal claimed it back, expanded all the way up from the north from Porto down to the Algarve. And in the middle somewhere was Lisbon, and this became the capital of the country. But that wasn't always the case. Porto has, and the north for sure has also Portuguese historic significance. And still it's a very nice city. I might end up there. And so during that age of exploration, early on, Portugal became quite big, a big player in the world. And if you'll see what you'll see here on the coast from Lisbon all the way outward up to Cascais, it's full of fortifications because they had to defend the city, you know, back in the day. And here in Belem is the Torre of Belem. Look at that. We're doing a YouTube session, and I think there's an Insta session going on there too. The Tower of Belem. This fortification was built somewhere early 16th century. Na, 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 na. Don't demonetize me, YouTube. It's not the real song, but I know you don't care. Look at that. And this is really that old middle-aged style. And you'll see buildings like this in this style all over Portugal. Oh no, super adventure time! Oh, not my bike, not my bike. Be gentle with this bike. Here we are. So imagine the great explorers from back in the day departing here into the open Atlantic. I love those trains, man. They're still the same old school ones from back in the day. And this road here that leads out of the city, and it begins to hug the coastline here, is the Marginal. The further you go, the more of these little towns, well, they're not so little anymore, they keep growing, that originally had these beautiful old houses where those of high stature and those of money, you know, would live or have their summer homes. And as we ride here right on the shoreline, you can barely still see the other side there. It also ends on a tip there. We're almost at the beginning of the Atlantic Ocean, where the ships from the Tagus, would set out and sail onto the wide open sea. I really love that. A lot of it is connected nowadays. Yeah. Lower it. Oh, gotta shift again. Here comes the train. No pain, no gain. I love this train. Still has that. Always has had that old train dirty smell. It's great. There, I was talking about the fortifications earlier. That's another one of them. And that's still one of many all the way up the coast. Because Lisbon had to be defended. Because back then, man, they would have war for almost anything. This is also where the beaches start. All the way up to Cascais. And then the wild beaches start after that. The surf beaches. Guincho. Maluquice. This is where we start to hug the Marginal. If any Portuguese are wondering what I cycled today, was from Ueiras and back. This is the best mountain bike I've ever ridden, and it's extremely light too. Let's get to the other side. Yeah, quite a bit of cycling today. And some of it, a big chunk of it standing up, because otherwise I would end up with the stem up my you-know-what. Nobody wants that. So, hope you enjoyed this little introduction to Lisbon. I wanted to show you more, but the sun beat us today. That's all right. We're still going to go for a ride. You're going to see more of it. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. I think it's really cool that I've been able to show you this it's a really magnificent city where I was born on a day quite some time ago. So all of you, be cool out there, and let's see ya in the next one, eh? Ciao.